Nintendo announced on Thursday that we're getting another Nintendo Switch 2 edition of a Switch title, specifically Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, which ironically makes the original game a bit less definitive than it once was. I'm particularly glad that this game is getting a bit more attention, as I absolutely adored the world, but I found the gameplay a little overwhelming to figure out, at least in the time I had, so I'm quite looking forward to diving back in with the upgrade pack when time permits, though goodness knows when that will be. A few thoughts. Thought 1. It feels a little weird to me that they're releasing the physical Nintendo Switch 2 edition on the exact same day as Tomodachi Life. Nintendo has double released games before, but very rarely indeed, and usually for clear reasons, such as putting a lot of games around the launch of a new console. Even products like the Wonder Flower are offset by a week from the Super Mario Bros. Wonder upgrade game. However, this is the week before the Japanese launch of the Mario movie, and both Tomodachi and Xenoblade are games with a major Japanese fan base. That might be a reason if they think that they can promote things in the lead up to the movie while there's a lot of attention on Nintendo content. Nintendo may also feel that Nintendo Switch 2 editions for smaller selling titles won't be market sensitive enough to be given their own discrete slots, and it may actually save some money on shipping to have deliveries coincide, so they might think in this case that going forward it's worth releasing more games on the same day. You can understand the games so far being given a discrete week, as they are all ones that have sold at least in the high seven figures, if not eight figures, on the Switch. Animal Crossing, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and so on. But Xenoblade Chronicles X is the first of the relatively more muted sales options. Also, it might spike up sales this financial year, so if we see Xenoblade Chronicles X cross a million sold in the 2025 to 2026 financial year, which is plausible considering how close to the end of March it released last year, and therefore a significant number of its sales probably took place last April, well, in that case, we could see an update confirming what it sold in the next financial update from Nintendo, which would be quite fun to see. On balance, regrettably, I don't expect one, but it would be intriguing to see what exactly it did sell. It seems like it sold in the low 1 million number of copies. Thought 2. The announcement timing may be a pure coincidence, but it does make me wonder if there was at some point a consideration of doing a direct on the third Thursday in February, which I always thought was one of the more logical points in February to do a direct if they were going to do one, avoiding both the Pokemon Presents and the Sony State of Play. Most announcements probably have some kind of flexibility to be moved, but I suspect that they would have wanted to get this one locked in place for retailer orders a bit of time in advance. I haven't really commented on directs that much because there are always direct rumours. My central expectation remains that there will be a Mario game this winter, announced during this summer, but I also still expect Nintendo to address their first-party content before, at the very least, the May financials. However, they could do this in a bleak way, such as a pre-announcement of a June Direct in a tweet in May, possibly as part of a tweet celebrating any success the film has, in which they could also allude to there being big Mario news. I think the difficulty that they have is that they don't frankly have a huge number of free slots for 2026, once you count off Tomodachi Yoshi, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, Pokemon Champions, Rhythm Heaven, Pokemon Gen 10, and likely Splatoon Raiders. My guess is there are probably 4 more games to announce, one of which will be a Mario title and at least one will be a Zelda title, neither of which I expect they'll want to talk about until after the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Windows closes. Can they land a March Direct in terms of popular reception? If they've got just Splatoon Raiders, awesome, yes. A Fortune's Weave update, great but kind of expected. A 2027 game announcement, which they could do, and maybe just 2 smaller scale new titles. There's a risk with this that far from hyping Nintendo up, it actually diffuses excitement, since as long as Nintendo keep quiet, there's the expectation that there's something big around the corner. There's a lot they could do to keep momentum up through March. They could drop some Yoshi news on Mario Day. We haven't had an indie world for some time. A second partner showcase is completely possible. A second Tomodachi Life showcase feels like a good shout, especially from the way that Koizumi signed off the last one. And I could completely see Fire Emblem getting a dedicated direct to announce the date. add in the Pokemon Presents, which I suspect might give us a date for Pokemon Champions, which could start to shore up the schedule through to the middle of May, and Nintendo could easily have a presentation up every week through to the movie release. Thought 3. The pace seems to be continuing of roughly one Nintendo Switch 2 edition to one original game release, and I would expect this to continue in the medium term. If there is a trend, it's the biggest sellers being the ones that get the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, but of course, Xenoblade Chronicles X probably belongs to a second subcategory alongside Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, not, I grant you, given a full Nintendo Switch 2 edition, but still given an upgrade for the Nintendo Switch 2. And this trend is specifically of recent titles that didn't get their full window of time in the sun during 2023, 2024, 2025. Also, Nintendo seems to have experimented with a variety of different upgrade options over the last 8 months, from free to Nintendo Switch Online packaging to $5 to $10 to $20 upgrades. Given the apparent market resistance to $80 titles remaining, though, I'm not sure how many more games will push for that higher figure after Kirby and Super Mario Party Jamboree. Some games remain conspicuous by their absence, after all. The major one is Luigi's Mansion 3, which I figure will be announced for closer to Halloween, but there's also Mario and Luigi Brothership and Princess Peach Showtime, which by dint of being such high-profile franchises do seem like obvious ones to potentially expand and develop, especially with a view to having the games available at full price on the Switch 2, so that these games could be sold for the whole generation. Plus, of course, there is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which came in the summer of 2024, which feels very similar in many respects to Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in terms of its overall profile, being a port of a game that was reasonably popular on the 3DS, but which has yet to really command massive respect on the Switch. But if they give it some extra features, maybe a bit of a profile bump around the film, they might find that Luigi's Mansion 2 HD does a little bit better, and so this is one I could definitely see them giving some further attention to. Mario Day could be a very good time to launch these kinds of titles, but on balance, I think they will want to keep the focus on Super Mario Bros. Wonders, Nintendo Switch 2 edition for now, so if they have any game-related news, it will probably be a date for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. Of course, the obvious titles to receive Nintendo Switch 2 editions are still the Pokemon games, of which there are many who could be good candidates, and I will be covering these in a separate video on the near certain Pokemon Presents that is going to be coming up next week to celebrate the 30th anniversary of that series. I'm going to hold off on forecasts that are specific and further comments in this particular video, but I will circle back to these another time. Thank you as ever for watching the channel. Please do consider checking out the Patreon if you are interested in early, ad-free and exclusive content. Do check out the videos on the screen right now, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.